Have you ever been formally taught how to do a détaché stroke? If you have, thank the teacher who taught you. If you haven't, you probably need this video. Détaché is the first stroke that we're expected to use as beginners. Unfortunately, it gets buried in the 99 other things that we have to encounter and master before we can play our very first song on violin. There's so many beginner skills that all have to line up. And so most of us aren't taught until much later how to do a proper détaché. Détaché is simple. It's just an alternating down bow and up bow. People try to make more out of it than it is, and that creates some problems. And then some people don't even know what it is, and because it has a fancy name, they assume there must be something fancy that goes along with it, and they try to do something special with their bow stroke. Namely, they try to detach it, because that's detach is in the word détaché, but it just simply means alternating down bow and up bow. Okay, for a good détaché, we need straight bow, consistent bow weight, consistent sounding point, and a level bow plane. I hope all four of those elements make sense to you. The fourth one maybe doesn't. So what I mean by a level bow plane is your bow stays on the same angle from down bow to up bow and doesn't go. Okay, so straight bow means parallel to the bridge. Consistent bow weight means consistent from frog to tip and from tip to frog. And then consistent sounding point just means you choose your sounding point and you don't allow yourself to skid. Okay, so now, before I tell you the 8 things that can go wrong with détaché, let me quickly give you the exercise that I use on all of my students to fix a flawed détaché. I keep it simple, and you don't need sheet music for it, because I want students to be able to focus entirely on their bow stroke, and to be able to look in a mirror and to be able to self-diagnose and fix these things. So the exercise, I call it tetrachords with reps. A tetrachord is just using your 4 fingers in a certain pattern. We have several common tetrachords on violin. This is the most common and the first one we learn as beginners. Half step between C sharp and D. Okay, so that's the first tetrachord. That's the only one you even need to use for this exercise. But I usually cycle my students through different various tetrachords just to cover more bases. But really, if you just do just this tetrachord and focus on your détaché stroke, that'll be sufficient. Okay, and I have them apply reps to each pitch. Reps is short for repetitions. So I usually have them do 4 reps followed by 2 reps on each note, followed by 1 rep on each note. So that would look like this. Ooh, my A string sounds really weird today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when they start over on their open A, that's starting the tetrachord all over again. So then you do 2 reps. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you go through it twice because it goes by twice as fast. When I play the open A the next time, that's starting my tetrachord again. And so we're going to do single reps on each note. The singles, and this is where it gets exciting. We do it once, we do it twice, do it 3 times, 4 times. Okay, so you do 4 reps, go through the tetrachord once. When you do 2 reps, go through the tetrachord twice. When you do single reps, go through the tetrachord 4 times. Okay, so that's the simple basic exercise. And I'm going to list 8 things that can go wrong in a détaché. I've commonly seen this in my own students and the way to fix it using these tetrachord exercises. Okay, number 1, the number 1 thing that can go wrong in a détaché, very, very common, is a crooked bow. And we all know that we shouldn't use a crooked bow. So usually the crooked bow goes crooked this way, or sometimes it goes crooked this way, or sometimes it's both. Crooked that way on the down bow and this way on the up bow. And that's what I call a bad banana, where you draw a frowny face on your violin. Watch. Do you see the line I'm drawing on my violin? So if you hear me use the term bad banana, that's what that is. Okay, so to fix crooked bow, look in a mirror. And if the camera were my mirror, I would turn my violin sideways to the camera so the F holes are facing the mirror, and then I'd have to not go in normal posture of looking down the scroll. I have to look at the mirror. So that's a little bit of a compromise, but it's worth it. So you watch in a mirror, and when you see yourself go crooked, freeze and fix it, and memorize which direction you had to move when you fixed it and what bow you were on, down bow or up bow, when you had to fix it. It might be both. Okay, but a mirror will fix it faster than anything. Second thing you need to know to fix crooked bow is to utilize your elbow, not your shoulder. This is what I call greasy elbow. Most of my students know this term. See my elbow? As opposed to, my elbow isn't moving at all. My shoulder is moving. Okay, so greasy elbow and mirror for number 1. Number 2 is the sounding point will skid. I have a student doing tetrachords and they'll be going. That's a gross exaggeration. Even if you're skidding that much on your violin's sounding point, you'll degrade your sound. You won't get that nice crystal clear articulation. And students don't know why, because it's almost invisible, except to an experienced eye. An experienced eye can see that you're skidding. The way to cure that is look in a mirror and master straight bow. So number 1 and number 2 are related. Okay, and you'll fix them the same way, by looking in a mirror. The other thing that can help to solve the skidding sounding point is to make sure that you've got a little bit of a flexible wrist. Not floppy wrist, but just a flexible wrist that reciprocates equally on down bow, up bow, like that. Can you see what my wrist is doing? I'll show you on the violin. Now watch, I'll go to a stiff wrist. Even though I'm using greasy elbow, a very stiff wrist causes the bow to do the old Orange Blossom Special. The train sound, and you don't want that usually. Okay, so check your flexible wrist for if you're skidding on your sounding point, and practice in a mirror and make sure you've mastered straight bow. Number 3 thing that goes wrong is what I call holes between each bow change. And that's caused by a flawed attempt at stylizing your bow stroke. That's where you've misunderstood what a détaché is, and you've started attempting to do a different bow stroke in a passage that's meant to be détaché and it doesn't work. So those are holes. That's related to number 4, but I'm not ready to go to 4 yet. The other thing that can cause holes in a détaché is if your left hand is hesitating on the notes, forcing the bow to wait, then you get a different kind of hole, like on the gavotte from Mignon from Suzuki Book 2. That's a nice little finger twister passage from Suzuki Book 2. But if my left hand doesn't know where it's going, it comes out like this. It's spastic, it's got some crunches, and that's your left hand's fault. And that's where you just need to drill the notes and teach the notes better to your left hand so that the bow arm isn't forced to wait and slam on the brakes for left hand. Okay, number 4 is changes in your bow weight. And that's kind of the first kind of, when I showed you the holes, the flawed attempt at stylizing. Watch my bow hair. Can you see it going? I'm making bow shapes that are like this instead of like this. A détaché is a flat line like this. The other way I was doing this in little U shapes. And that can really be a disaster in a détaché passage. So the cause of those bow weight changes are, again, a flawed attempt at stylizing, a misunderstanding or confusion about what détaché is, or attempting to do a martelé or a détaché lancé instead of pure détaché. I'm not going to talk about the different types of détaché in this video. There are a couple different types of détaché, but the pure détaché is what I'm talking about in this video. Straight bow, consistent bow weight, consistent sounding point, and level bow plane. All right. The way you fix that changing bow weight is 2 awesome exercises. Number 1, just look in a mirror and watch that your horsehair is not dancing around. And this time you're not going to look in a mirror like this. You're going to look in a mirror like this. Now watch. Obvious. Okay, the other way to fix this problem is nice if you have an assistant, but you can do it yourself as well. I call it the tissue torture. My students hate this. If they are doing a faulty détaché or changing their bow weight, I tell them don't add any bow weight, let me add the bow weight. And then I tell them I'm going to add 2 ounces. I don't really know how much bow weight I'm adding, but I add a little bit of bow weight, not a lot, and I keep it there. And then I ask them to play their passage. And it always turns out beautiful because it's effortless for them. They don't have to worry about their bow weight. They get to feel what it's like when the bow weight is consistent and not going lighter at the beginning and at the end. They get to feel that it's really safe, it's really okay to keep consistent bow weight even throughout the bow change. So the tissue torture is wonderful. Did you see how I did it? I took my left hand is free. I wrapped it around and I just applied a little bit of bow weight to my bow, and I played open strings, obviously, because I can't play notes. You can have an assistant do it, but explain to them just about 2 ounces or not very much bow weight, and they need to stay out of the way. They need to not touch your strings on accident, and they need to allow your bow to cross strings. So they're not going to want to add the tissue out here because that's going to get in the way of string crossings, and here is going to get in the way. do it right above the strings. Okay, that's magical. And so is practicing in a mirror facing this way. It'll fix it really quickly. Okay, number 5 and number 6, I call figure 8s and seesaw. And the figure 8s are look like something like that. And one of my own students did this recently, and I asked him, why are you doing that? He was confusing my discussion that I had with good bananas versus bad bananas, and he assumed that he had to do that in huge motions for every détaché stroke. And that was a little bit of a misunderstanding of what the intention of good bananas is. Not going to discuss that in this video. So nothing fancy. Don't do anything fancy for a good détaché. It should just be straight bow, back and forth. Okay, the seesaw is the changing bow playing. And that develops from students who are trying to imitate a professional or trying to be expressive, or which is awesome, or they're experimenting with their elbow levels for other reasons, and it creates the habit of doing a weird seesaw with their détaché. You can experiment with your elbow level, but when you're doing a détaché, it needs to be stay put. Cross string, and not be moving around during a détaché stroke. Okay, so that's number 5 and number 6. Number 7 is when a student attempts to use too much collé. That's what my old teacher used to call being more Catholic than the Pope. Just trying to do too good of a job, being an overachiever. I'm being too ugly, and I'm not intending to. It's just full of disruption. If you have weird disruptions in your fast bow stroke and you're not sure why, ask yourself how much collé you're using and maybe try to minimize the collé. When you're doing collé on a détaché stroke, you need the tiniest amount. I tell my students, don't even think of it as collé, think of it as flexibility, like a shock absorber, not as this giant motion that we use when we're at the frog. When it's a détaché collé, it's just a little bit of flexibility, okay? The way you fix that is just awareness, I guess, and I don't have a specific exercise for that one, but it is a problem. If you have weird disruptions, just ask yourself, am I trying too hard on my collé? The last problem that I see very commonly with collé is an uneven down bow, up bow stroke. Or it's like ribbit, 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 ribbit. It's a stronger down bow and longer down bow and a shorter, weaker up bow. And the perfect way to fix that, and it'll fix it it will point it out to you instantly, is to start your tetrachord exercise up bow. Instead of starting down, up, down, up, start up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay, if you do that exercise and you make sure that you're starting your downbeat with a strong up bow, it will help you to fix that lopsided détaché bow. Okay, thanks for sticking with me through a pretty long video. I hope this helps you. Leave your comments below, and thanks for watching.